What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for another day of NFL free agency. My reactions, my analysis of every pickup, every signing, every move. This NFL free agency for day 3. It is March 16th, a Wednesday night that I'm breaking down Wednesday's moves. And this was a very, very compelling and interesting day 3 of free agency. We had quite a few big names come off the board today throughout the day. And boy, as a Patriots fan, I've got some rants for you tonight because I've got some stuff to get off my chest. So if you're interested in that, don't forget to spike the like button. And also subscribe to the channel for more BLV just like this. Also, guys, spike that notification bell so that you are notified with the latest upload and the latest live stream. Like I said, I will be live for every night this week discussing the free agency signings. And today there were many of them that we have to discuss. As you see in the thumbnail, these were really headlined by the pass rushers today. We had a big trade involving the Raiders and the Colts. Yannick Ngakoue traded from the Raiders to the Colts for Rocky Sin. We'll talk about that. And that move really opened up the cap space and the ability for the Raiders to sign former Patriot, Josh McDaniels brings him in, Chandler Jones. And then we had Von Miller sign a massive 6-year contract with the Buffalo Bills. Is that the move that can put the Bills over the top? And a lot more today, including the Ravens getting Zadarius Smith. So a lot of pass rushers specifically made an impact today in free agency. If you guys don't know, you can follow me on social media at Mitch Milani. That is Milani as you read it on screen. Specifically on Twitter, where I am pretty active throughout free agency, giving you my thoughts, my random football thoughts that come out of this brain. I just give you whatever I feel at the moment. And today, as the people know in Discord, has been a day where I have really been coming to terms with the Patriots. Okay, so this is where I want to start. And I apologize to any non-Patriots fans that don't want to hear it. But when you come to the bottom line view, you got to understand where my lens is. Okay, and that's from a Patriots fan all my life. And from Belichick and from Brady. So a lot of the way that I see football comes from this dynasty that we've seen for 20 years. Now, I have come to the realization that the Patriots are going to be terrible this year. I'm not saying they're going to be bad, okay? Get this through your skulls. I have come to the realization that they are going to suck in 2022. And I think I'm okay with it. I currently look at the moves that they have made. They are not enticing. They are not exciting. They have done nothing to improve this team. If anything, they have declined this offseason. They lost J.C. Jackson, arguably the best corner in the NFL. That's how highly I think of J.C. Jackson. If he's not number 1, he's number 2. They cut Kyle Van Noy. The offensive line's in shambles. Shaq Mason gone. They didn't address number 1 wide receiver. Linebacker, not really addressed yet. And I was concerned coming off of the massive loss in the playoffs from the Bills. They whooped our candy asses. And I thought this might be the way it goes. Patriots are going to suck. They're going to suck. So I'm just warning you guys, Patriots fans, get ready for the suck. Embrace the suck. Because it's here. At least for this season. I don't think we're going to be very good. I wish we were good, but I don't think we're going to be very good. I will say, if there is a season that we are to suck, 2022 is probably that season because the AFC, and this is a larger storyline, is absolutely loaded in a way that I have not seen for quite some time. I have not seen the AFC to this level since about, and the AFC's had some really good runs, right? The AFC has mostly dominated the last, about since 1998-ish. The AFC has mostly run the NFL. A lot of that's the Patriots, but you also had, of course, Peyton Manning and the Colts, Peyton Manning's Broncos. You had the Ravens, you had the Steelers, you had even the Chargers. There were some very good football teams in the AFC. That's coming back around now as well in the AFC. Look at that poll that I put out. The AFC is loaded, guys. The Chargers, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bengals. Even teams like the Browns are quality. Even teams like the Colts have a strong roster. Even teams like the Raiders have a strong roster. I didn't mention Russell Wilson's Broncos. I mean, even my Patriots, who are going to suck, made the playoffs last year. The Jets are getting better. The Jags are getting better. Guys, this conference is unbelievable right now. It is getting outrageous to the amount of talent that we are seeing in one conference. It is outrageous. It is to the levels of like 2007, 2006, 2008. Like this level of like ridiculous talent in the AFC, in my opinion. It's loaded. This is rivaling for the strongest AFC I've seen entering a season. That is how much talent there is in the AFC. So, to turn this all the way back around to the Patriots, as I always do. Patriots fans, embrace the suck. We are going to be dreadful. And it's okay. Hopefully Mac Jones improves. But our defense won't be the same. We're going through a transition period. We need to replenish this roster with some young talent. That's okay. Okay? It's okay. But we're going to suck. Just understand that. I'm letting everybody know my expectations for 2022. Don't come here in my comments and tell me how my team sucks. I know. I'm telling you this right now. My team is terrible. We are bad. Okay? We have one of the worst receiving cores. We literally have 3 starting offensive linemen. I'm debating N'Keal Harry playing right tackle. Our corner position is not what it used to be. Our linebackers don't know who they are. Our defensive line, I don't know. Patriots are going to be bad, okay? And it's okay. I'll probably rant about that again in this video, but I want to get to the free agency stuff. Before I do, guys, make sure that you do give that Gronk spike, like the video. Let's talk about some moves. Okay, let's begin with the team that largely has dominated the first couple of days of free agency. And that team was the Jacksonville Jags. Jacksonville added to their secondary today, signing cornerback Darius Williams, former Rams corner, who in 2020 was a top 20 corner in the NFL, according to yours truly. 2021 took a step back in the wrong direction, but he became too expensive for the Rams. And we have seen the Rams, if any team has been taken advantage of, so to speak, in free agency, the Rams have lost a lot of talent. But Darius Williams gets a 3-year deal from Jacksonville. And that is one of the top corners in free agency. I think Williams, for a lot of people, not myself, but a lot of people had him, in that top 3 in free agency. I think he was certainly in that top 5 discussion for sure. He got a 3-year deal, expected to be up to $39 million. I actually thought this was one of the better contracts for the corner position and for free agency that I've seen for Jacksonville. I have not been happy, and I think Jacksonville's taken a lot of criticism for how they've went about free agency and their contracts that they've given out. And that is totally understandable. Now, I will say this about that. If this was not Jacksonville, I feel like a lot more people would be positive about this move and about moves that they've made, because Trent Baalke has not gotten any respect for his moves in the past, right? He has not been a very good GM for this football team. He has not been a very good guy for this football team. Chris Godwin signed a 3-year, $60 million contract breaking live, I assume with Tampa Bay. Is that correct? Let me know, but I think so. But back to Darius Williams. I like this contract. We'll get to Chris Godwin right after this. Darius Williams, solid contract, young football player, 24, 25 years old, has had an elite season at the corner position. Corners are inconsistent. It's one of the more inconsistent positions in the NFL. So to see that a guy has had an elite season at this position is good, because you can always count on them potentially having an elite season again. Corner's one of those positions where a guy might be elite one year, he has maybe 2 down years, and he has another elite year. Something like that, right? So Darius Williams, young football player, good zone corner primarily. He's a little bit small, but he does play on the perimeter. And he really, what I like about him, despite his size, he actually has a good ability to fight for the football in the air. He shows some feistiness. He shows the ability to go up and high point the ball and bat it in the air and make timely plays on the football. I don't believe, just off the top of my head, he has a ton of interceptions, but he is somebody that will compete and fight for the football. I think that Williams was a good signing here, though, and I think it was a pretty good contract, and they're correcting me on the age of Darius Williams, saying he's 28, so he's a little bit older than I thought, but regardless, this is a starting corner that has shown elite play in the past and can get back there, and I think with Darius Williams now on one side, with Shaq Griffin on the other, you have 2 nice perimeter corners. Shaq Griffin actually played very well in his first year with Jacksonville, grading very well last year. And I always thought Griffin was kind of underrated. Darius Williams has gotten his just due from a lot of people and has been evaluated fairly. But I think that's a good combo. 1-2 corner, very respectable. They also drafted Campbell as a nickel corner, I believe is going to be that nickel. So they've got a decent semblance of a top 3 corner group. And beyond that, they're a pretty deep corner group overall, so they could focus maybe on safety in the draft, and I think that's where they'll go in the draft. They put the resources through free agency into their corner position, but I think Williams and Griffin complement each other well, both primarily better in zone, but can play a bit of man. And then on top of that, Griffin's a little bit taller, he's got more length, and Darius Williams is more of the shifty, quicker, smaller guy. So if you're playing matchup ball with those 2 corners, one is going to be better at covering the smaller guy, one's going to be better at covering the taller guy. So I like how they complement each other there overall. But yeah, I like the signing, and I think the value was actually surprising. I thought that he was going to get a lot more money on the open market, given how high his reputation is and given that he's not too old. But I think this is a very solid signing for Jacksonville, and maybe like pound for pound, dollar for dollar, their best signing yet. Let's talk about Chris Godwin. Now, I know that it's a re-signing. I don't typically talk about re-signings. I'm going to just take a look at the contract real quick. So the Bucs franchise tagged Chris Godwin, but hoped it would be a placeholder for a long-term deal. 8 days later, the team and agent Tory Dandy hammered out a 3-year, $60 million extension for Chris Godwin and cap space for Tampa Bay. So interesting. I wonder how that's structured. I assume that it's structured more so down the road for him to get money in the next 2-3 years as opposed to this season. Godwin reached an agreement, 3 years, $60 million, 40 guaranteed. Looks like the exact same deal as Mike Williams got with the Chargers, which is fitting as Williams and Godwin share an agent. What else we got here? Anything more details on this? But it looks like it actually freed up some cap this year for Tampa Bay because Godwin was already on the franchise tag, which I think was a pretty big number on the franchise tag. So he's actually cheaper this year and probably more expensive in year 2 and 3. 3-year deal. I'm surprised it's only 3 years for Godwin. I would have expected them to maybe try to lock him down for 4 or 5 years. But 3 years is solid. That's pretty much the going rate right now for just NFL players in general. It feels like 3-year contract is very standard. When I look at the 3 years, $60 million, 40 guaranteed, and you compare that to Mike Williams, guys, Chris Godwin is immensely better than Mike Williams. They're not even in the same category for me. Now, I'm not a huge Mike Williams fan, so maybe I'm biased, but Chris Godwin is, to me, at least a top 15 receiver, maybe top 10, and I think he's unique because he's one of the best slot receivers. He's tough as nails. He does a lot for Tampa Bay. He's very important to them. As you saw in the playoffs, he does everything from after the catch, screens, blocking, over the middle, intermediate, short, deep. He does everything for them. And he's very important, if not more important than Mike Evans is in that offense. So to look at that contract for him, I think that is a steal for Tampa Bay. Like in terms of 20, let's say it's 3 years, $60 million, $20 million a year or whatever. And it's the same as Mike Williams. And you saw what Christian Kirk got. That's a steal to me. He's an excellent football player. He's a great dude from all accounts. A big part of that locker room as well. And he's very young. I think he's 24 or maybe 25. So maybe 26. I don't know quite, but he's in that range. He's really young. So yeah, good for Chris Godwin. Great for the Bucs. It's going to open up cap space this year. It's going to be down the road that they're going to probably put that contract that's going to be a little bit higher down the road. Probably when Brady ends up leaving, they're going to pay him a bunch of money. But I like the way that they worked that out. And Chris Godwin, well-deserved, very good football player. And he's going to help the Bucs win some games this season. Dylan says Godwin is amazing. Mason asks Stephon Gilmore to the Raiders. That could happen. They have already made some moves, though, for corners, so I would expect them to maybe not so much. They signed, we're going to get to Anthony Averett, who's one of my favorite corners on the market, who they signed. And they got Rocky Sin in a trade, so that's 2 corners that primarily play on the perimeter. And they have the kid Hobbs from last year, who's a nickel corner. They could use, obviously, like a number one corner, but I mean, they're not in terrible shape right now. I think they're probably honestly improved at that position, just depth-wise from last year, and definitely system-wise, as they're going to be playing more man coverage this year than they were last year. But yeah, well, you could see Gilmore. I mean, there's a lot of Patriot connection guys going there this offseason. Rain says, you think the Colts are being slept on because they lack a quarterback? Rain, I don't think the Colts are being slept on, and it is exactly for that reason. They don't have a quarterback. So the AFC is absolutely loaded. Teams without a quarterback are not going to do any sort of damage this season. It's just not going to happen. The conference is way too loaded. If you do not have a good quarterback, you are not going to win. They need to get a quarterback before I can consider them to be a playoff team. Now, they're lucky that they're in the weakest division of the conference, but still. Christian says he's never seen a front office fully get worse. The Cowboys are incompetent. Christian, you're with me, man. You're with me. Embrace the suck, Christian. I know that you guys are probably going to be better than us, but yeah, we're both kind of having rough off seasons here a little bit. The Cowboys have been a little bit of a head-scratching off season, especially the Randy Gregory thing. That was tough. But hey, you've got lots of time. Cowboys aren't usually known for their offseason in terms of their free agency pickups. I'm sure that they'll be looking at some lower tier guys, or at least I would. I don't know what their plan is. They're usually pretty good in the draft, so we'll see how that works out. Luckily, they're in the NFC, though, or I might be losing hair in the AFC if I was the Cowboys. And I also have a hot take for everybody here that Tom Brady has been a better GM than Bill Belichick this offseason. Just going to throw that out there. Odd Big King says, what do you think about the Colts trade? Okay, let's talk about that. Thank you for bringing that up. I've got this giant list of moves that I got to talk about, but let's look at that. Okay. So the Raiders are sending Yannick Ngakoue to the Colts for cornerback Rock Ya-Sin, player for player deal. Ngakoue, off the top of my head, is making approximately $13 million this year on a 1-year contract. So it's a 1-year deal for the Colts. And pretty much this happened because the Raiders, couple things. Okay, so first, for Raiders fans, make it make sense, right? So Ngakoue was never going to play for the Raiders. It just wasn't going to happen. Doesn't fit the scheme whatsoever. Was just not going to happen, okay? So the Raiders were finding a partner to trade with for a team that it does fit the scheme. When you talk about Gus Bradley's defense and when you talk about the new Raiders defense, it's almost on the exact opposite spectrum of defensive schemes. So Ngakoue needs to go somewhere where he can use his speed, his burst and finesse off the edge to get to the quarterback. Just, he's one of those guys that just, he's going to go for it, right? That's the type of scheme that he's in. In terms of the Raiders, they're looking for guys that are a little bit more well-rounded football players, better, more powerful usually, bigger, guys that can set the edge better, defend the run better. Ngakoue is a pure pass rusher. He's pretty good as a pass rusher. But as a well-rounded D-end, there are a lot better guys out there. Chandler Jones is one of them. I think Chandler Jones is slightly slept on for his ability to defend the run. I think most often people look at it as sacks and don't really think about him as a run defender, but I think he's pretty good in that regard, especially because he's got really... The crazy thing about Chandler Jones, which I think has kept him good and I think is going to keep him good for a long time, is he is a really, really long athlete. His arms are like ridiculous. And that kind of allows you to manipulate offensive tackles and be able to hold them up and defend the run, as well as get after the quarterback, and as well as have makeup speed and make up ground really quickly so that you can sack the quarterback, which is why he's so good at sacking the quarterback and taking the football away, by the way. So now, talking about Yannick Ngakoue, what did the Colts get with this football player? Like I said, really good pass rusher. He's going to instantly improve the Colts' ability to get pressure on the quarterback, period. He's also pretty good at stripping the football, especially back in his days with Jacksonville. He was really, really good in that regard. I think 1 year he led the NFL in forced fumbles, if I remember correctly. It might have been 2017, the year where the Jacksonville was just outstanding on defense, and Ngakoue was a big part of that team and has pretty much had success every single place that he's played outside of the Ravens, which is the most similar defense to what the Raiders are going to be running now. So you knew that wasn't going to work. So that's the reason why the Raiders traded him. The reason the Colts traded for him is because they have Gus Bradley now, right? Ngakoue was successful with Gus Bradley. He fits that scheme. He's going to be able to apply pressure and complement guys like DeForest Buckner. And guys like DeForest Buckner are perfect for Ngakoue because that's going to draw attention, similar to how Calais Campbell did for Jacksonville when Ngakoue was there. And then Ngakoue can get to the quarterback and sack the quarterback. Now, with the Raiders, Rock Ya-Sin, I think he's been slightly underrated throughout his tenure with the Colts. I know that Colts fans kind of have a love-hate relationship, I feel like, with him. But I've always felt like when I've watched him that he was more so like a man coverage corner than a zone coverage corner. And he does have good ability to play press coverage. So I have always been a little bit confused by his fit in the Colts system because that's not really how they've played traditionally. So I feel like he might actually improve playing for the Raiders in their defense. I've always felt he's been pretty good. Nothing special, but he's a starting corner, perimeter corner. He's got pretty good size. And like I said, I've always felt like when the Colts have sprinkled in their man coverage, he's been one of their stronger guys in that regard. So I think this is a solid move all the way around when you consider what happened off of it for the Raiders. Because when you think about it, and this is where I'll transition to Chandler Jones, if you add up Chandler Jones and Yannick Ngakoue, you get rid of Ngakoue's contract, and then you sign Chandler Jones. So I think Ngakoue is about $4 million less than Chandler Jones. So Chandler Jones is basically, you're giving up $4 million, you're getting Chandler Jones for an extension, so 3 years, and then you're getting a corner on top of that. So would it have been nice? Yeah, Ngakoue is a better player, in my opinion, than Rock Ya-Sin is. But because the money is so different for both of those players, like Rock Ya-Sin's not making nearly the amount of money as Ngakoue is. So that's why it was just an even swap in terms of the trade because of the salary cap. So you have now Chandler Jones and a corner, a starting corner for the Raiders. Now, talking about Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones, where is that deal? I got to find the tweets. There's so many today, especially pass rushers. Chandler Jones reached a 3-year agreement. I believe that the contract is for $17.5 million per year, which is what you really kind of have to know or want to know. And Chandler Jones, obviously, I'm a little bit biased, I guess, but he hasn't been on my team for a long time, but I've always been a fan of Chandler Jones. I think he's still a good player. I don't think he's what he was like 3 years ago, but I still think he's really, really good. And he's at that probably stage where he's like a tier 2 edge player. He's not quite in that elite category anymore. And I've been honestly more critical of Chandler Jones than a lot of other people in the past because I've always felt like he has been very good at producing sacks, but sometimes been a little bit less consistent with consistent pressure. But the one thing I will say about Chandler Jones is his consistency with which he gets sacks is extremely rare. Like, not a lot of players get 10 plus sacks every single season they play. Like, Chandler Jones has gotten 10 plus sacks. He got 10.5 last year. I understand that like 4 of them came in the same game, but 10.5 sacks this year. And he's had 10.5 sacks every healthy season since 2015. I believe the only seasons he has not had 10 sacks are his rookie year and 2014. He had over 10 sacks in 2013, took a step down in 2014, went back up in 2015, got paid in 2016 by the Cardinals. Then he actually led the NFL in sacks at one point. So Chandler Jones is just extremely consistent with those sacks, which is very rare. It's kind of like paying for a corner that's really good at interceptions. Like, let's say J.C. Jackson, right? There's guys that can get a lot of interceptions in 1 year, and then there's guys that can get interceptions every year. And another guy that was an example of this is like Asante Samuel. These guys get interceptions or sacks every year. Chandler Jones, I think, is like 35th in sacks all time. So this guy's a special football player. Like, he is borderline. He might even be Hall of Fame, but he's borderline at this point. By the time his career is over, he probably makes it. And he's really good still, like I said. And he's going to give you key plays, key sacks, key game-changing strip sacks. The pressure from a consistent basis is going to be a little bit less often than I would say a Yannick Ngakoue, maybe, possibly, than you saw last year. But Ngakoue did have inconsistencies, especially at the end of the year. He was really good at the beginning of the year. But something I will say about Chandler Jones is a much more well-rounded player. He fits the scheme much better. He's better against the run. He's better at setting the edge. He's a very intelligent football player. Has has experience winning games, going to Super Bowls, all that stuff. So I think this is a great signing. Honestly, when I look at the contract, he's being paid about the 9th or 10th most at the position. I think that's very fair for Chandler Jones, especially given that he was up for a contract this year. So guys will be paid more next year and all that stuff. But yeah, I think he's going to be really good for the Raiders going forward and is an excellent complement to Max Crosby. Max Crosby is one of the best edge players in football. He got paid as such, as he should. So Chandler Jones is going to be able to thrive off of him and oftentimes take less in terms of the protection. So in that way, he's almost like Von Miller was to Aaron Donald for the Rams last year. So I like that a lot for Chandler Jones' career to continue his ability to put up those numbers, but I also like it for the Raiders. Having a 1-2 combo of Crosby and Jones is going to be very, very dangerous for the Las Vegas Raiders, and I think that helps them substantially up front. So that's my thoughts on those two moves for the Raiders, and then also the Colts getting Yannick Ngakoue. Guys, keep it coming with the questions. If you want to ask me anything, let me know. If you guys haven't already, make sure that you do Gronk Spike the like button. What's going on, Connor? How you doing, man? How you feeling? Chargers, Browns, how you feeling? All right. The Ravens. Let's talk about the Ravens, guys. I think there's a lot of people talking about the AFC when it comes to, obviously, the Chargers and the Bills and what they did today. Do not sleep on the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are a legit contender in the AFC entering this season. When I look at what the Ravens have been able to do here, I talked about Marcus Williams, how that was a great signing for them. Today, they added an edge rusher. They added a right tackle. I don't remember if Morgan Moses was last night or this morning. Regardless, it happened. So you've got Moses now. Their biggest flaw last year was right tackle. Now you bring in a rock-solid right tackle. Is he all-pro, Pro Bowl? No, but you're not paying him as such. He's rock-solid starter. He's a much better version of what you thought you were getting in Villanueva last year. And then you get a pass rusher in Zadarius Smith, who who's been successful for you in the past and has gotten better since he left your team, I think, and is a really good player, one of my favorites. So, starting with Morgan Moses, the Ravens signed Washington and Jets right tackle Morgan Moses. 3 years, $15 million. That's a really good deal. And you've got him starting 16 games in 7 straight seasons. So if you were banking on health, if you were banking on consistency, Morgan Moses is that dude. If you just were looking for a guy in free agency on the tackle position, wasn't going to cost you a lot, but you know he's going to come in and he's going to be a good starter. Maybe not top 10, but let's say possibly top half, at least not a bad starter, right? And you had to bank on a guy staying healthy, which has been a big problem for the Ravens, is staying healthy, especially at tackle and the offensive line. 3 years, $15 million, I think's a pretty good contract for Morgan Moses. He's a little bit older. I want to say, if I had to guess, he's 32. I'm just guessing this off the top of my head. He might be younger than that, but he just feels like he's 32 because he's played 7 straight years, 16 games in a row. Straight. Now, I think he's just well-rounded, pretty good run blocker, pretty good pass blocker, doesn't do anything particularly special, but he fits the bill for the Ravens. He's taller, I would say, which is typical of a Ravens tackle. But yeah, just a really solid starting right tackle. It's going to help protect Lamar Jackson. So that's a very nice move. Now, on top of that, you get Zadarius Smith. Where's the Zadarius Smith news here? Can I find it? Did I put it on my sheet? Hopefully. Possibly no. Maybe I didn't. Okay, let me look that up. Somebody asked a question. What's your opinion on Mason to Tampa for a 5th? Who do you believe won this trade? I talked about it yesterday. If you want to go check it out in detail, you could check out my video, my reaction from yesterday. But my opinion on it is that the Bucs certainly won the trade. But I understand the move from the New England perspective, especially when it comes to getting rid of about $15 million in cap space over the next 2 years. He is a very good player, though. I thought they could have kept him around if they really wanted to. But it looks like New England is not willing to move money into the future, and that they'd rather have that money for the future than use it now, which is interesting. Maybe that's just the way they're game planning for this team for the future, and they're willing to sacrifice this offseason. I don't know. What's up, Phil? How you doing? Monty, I ranted about the Patriots a little bit. What about Allen Robinson? I haven't heard a single thing about Allen Robinson lately. Michael says that Moses is a much better run blocker. You know what? I've never really thought that he was below average as either. But I could see that. I mean, he is a pretty good run blocker, which fits the Ravens. So, yeah, I mean, maybe he's been slightly better as a run blocker, but I think he's been pretty good at both. Like, I don't think he's been bad at either. So, let's look for Zadarius Smith. What's up? Okay, so Zadarius Smith is getting a 4-year, $50 million deal. By the way, I was a little bit surprised by this contract. I'm not sure how it's structured. I thought that it was much lower than I thought. I thought he was going to get more money than this. But I kind of get it, I guess, because he was cut before free agency began. So obviously a team like the Packers weren't willing to pay him. And the other consideration here is that he is coming off an injured season where he basically missed most of the year. So he is a little bit more of an unknown than somebody like Von Miller and Chandler Jones. But when I look at Zadarius Smith, maybe he's not the pure pass rusher that these guys are, but I feel like Zadarius Smith is extremely versatile, and I've always really liked his game because of that. I thought in Green Bay, they really maximized his strengths, his ability to move around and rush the passer from the outside, from the inside, blitz, He does a really good job of moving around. He's athletic enough to do all that stuff, and he's got really good power, sets the edge very well, and I just think, I just really like his game. I really like his game. I like the type of player that he is. And I think the Ravens have a really good signing here because you kind of already know what you're getting. And he essentially replaces what you missed last year in Matthew Judon as a little bit of a premier edge rusher, right? He's not, like, Judon was never like a superstar for them. He actually, in terms of his pressure and his sacks, got better with New England. But in terms of that system, right, he's the guy that feasts the most off of their creative blitzing schemes and stuff. Now, they're switching systems a little bit, so that's going to be interesting to see how that formulates there in Baltimore. But Zadarius Smith is going to give a big boost to what they had on the edge position. Jason Owe, they spent a first-round pick on, who's talented, young, very good athlete, but still pretty raw. I like Tyus Bowser quite a bit. I think he's underrated. But they've got solid depth there, but I just think they needed that above-average pass rusher, and they definitely get that with Zadarius Smith. Like I said, a one-on-one, just send him off the edge type guy. He's not necessarily in that Chandler Jones realm, but as a guy that can do a little bit of everything and be a little bit more of a chess piece, he is very good in that regard. So that's what he's being paid as. That's why you see the difference in the money. But I like the move here. And I think this helps the Ravens, right? You look at the three positions where they have been the weakest last year. Right tackle, free safety, and I would say edge rusher. And that's what they just addressed over the last couple of days. So they have hit on all of their biggest needs with three players that I really like. Like, Marcus Williams is a top 20 safety, if not better. Zadarius Smith is a top 20 edge player, if not better. And Morgan Moses is a top 20 tackle, I would say. Or at least, top 24, including left and right tackles. In terms of right tackles, he's probably top 12. So that's pretty good for the Ravens. These aren't just like average players they're getting. These are like good football players. So I really like what the Ravens have done, and I think they're going to be much improved, and I think they're going to be a team to watch because I think a lot of people are going to sleep on them entering this year because there's so much attention going elsewhere in the AFC, as it should. But with Lamar back and healthy, who I still think when he is on, he is one of the best. A well-coached football team every year. A team that has a great special teams every year. A team that improved their receiving core last year. Mark Andrews really came into his own last year. Marquise Brown came into his own last year. Left tackle back, one of the best. Running backs back. Secondary back. Improved, probably. They lost a little bit of depth, but if they can keep their starters around and maybe draft some depth, they'll be in a good spot. Now, let's transition with a guy that left Baltimore. And this was one of my favorite pickups of the day because it's very low key and not a lot of people know who this guy is. But I like him a lot and I wanted the Patriots to sign him. And that's former Ravens corner Anthony Averett. I believe is how you properly pronounce his name. I could be wrong. But I like him a lot. And 1 year, $4 million, which that is an extremely affordable contract for a corner that last year played very good football, in my opinion, when he started in place of Marcus Peters for a lot of the year and even Marlon Humphrey. But he's somebody that is an example of a player that was deep on a really talented depth chart for a lot of years. Right? He had a good profile coming out of college. He was from Alabama, right? 5'11", 4.3 speed, so he has good speed. He has speed to play man coverage. He has good enough size. He's 27 years old, 3 picks last year, 11 passes defense last year, a 77.5 rating allowed, 55 completion percentage allowed, and only a 7.6 yards per target. So that's from my notes from my bargain players of free agency, and I had as the destinations Baltimore, New England, the Giants, and the Raiders. So if he fits right in from my analysis here, he's a wide perimeter corner who doesn't play much in the slot, but he can travel due to his man coverage skills. Pretty good press coverage. But yeah, like a good age, 27 years old. You're signing somebody who has yet to hit their peak. They've only had 1 season of evidence that they can play in the league. We don't know much else, which it's a little bit of a risk, but with a 1 year, $4 million contract, he hits, and then boom, you've got him in your building to potentially extend him as a starting corner for the future. He fits this system, having played in a similar man-heavy system in Baltimore, which is what the Raiders are going to be running a lot of the time this year. So yeah, this is like, you could tell I really like this move for the Raiders. I think it's extremely affordable, extremely cheap, high upside. He's got raw tools. He's got production. And he's coming from a system and a defense that I really respect. So all of these things, and even a college that I really respect. So yeah, Anthony Averett to the Las Vegas Raiders. Very good addition, very low-key addition to the Las Vegas Raiders secondary. Brandon says that he was his corner in the IDP league, and he was pretty solid. Nice. Bobby Wagner places for him to go, asked Pikachu. I would say the Dallas Cowboys stand out to me. Now that the Steelers have signed the linebacker Miles Jack, I don't think they're going to be in there. I've seen the Patriots are up there. I'm not sure about that. I really am not. I honestly think the Jets are more likely than the Patriots. I don't think the Bills. I'm just going to go run through the teams. I don't think the Colts. I don't think the Jags. I don't think the Titans. I don't think that's a fit necessarily. The AFC North, maybe the Bengals, maybe, possibly the Browns, but they don't really value linebackers like that. The Chargers, you never know. The Broncos are certainly a possibility. A lot of teams, I feel like. I saw buzz about the Niners, but I don't think that really makes sense. Their linebacker position's already good. I don't see the point of that. Anybody else? Not Seattle. Not the Rams. Not the Cardinals. Maybe the Eagles? And that's about it, I think. Those would be the teams off the top of my head. Why did Von Miller get a 6-year, $120 million contract? Let's talk about that. So, Von Miller. Oh, really? Tom Brady's only getting $11 million this year? Dude, this guy's a trooper. Oh, the Broncos signed 49ers Tom Compton. That's actually a pretty good signing. Did I predict that one? Where did I have Tom Compton going? Man, I can't remember. Maybe it wasn't. Was it? Was it the Broncos? I don't know. I'm talking to myself, but yeah. I'm going to look up details on Von Miller because I'm not exactly sure how it's structured, so I don't want to speak out of line here. So I'm just going to look up on Twitter. I have my assumptions about how it's structured. He is the first defensive player in NFL history to sign 2 contracts at least $100 million. That's pretty impressive for Von Miller, to be honest with you. Let me see if I can find this. Okay. $53 million payout in the first 3 years. So that's not even 20 a year, is it? No. It's less than 20 a year. 32 guaranteed. 52 total in guarantees. Okay, so I'm just going to go through my assumptions, but it basically what you have to know is $53 million through 3 years. 32 guaranteed. That's what you got to know. Now, Von Miller. Don't pay attention to the contract. It does not matter. The reason it's 6 years is because they want to be able to space it out. And like the Saints have done for years, they want to be able to move money to the future. Right? They want to be able to organize it in a way that can keep them contending and have him on the team for however long his career is. And they're willing to sacrifice money into the future to be able to do that. So I think it just allows them the flexibility to move money around. And it also allows them to restructure their contract many times throughout his career. So that is the main thing with the 6-year, $100+ million. He's probably not going to get all that money, right? He's not going to get all that money, but what is he going to do for the Bills? Bills have not had a pass rusher like Von Miller in a very long time. I want to say the last one that was in his realm of ability is Mario Williams, potentially, and I'm even surprised that I remember that. But Yeah, that's probably the last time, which was before the Bills were good, if you remember that. So, yeah, they haven't had one in a while. You know, Jerry Hughes was a solid football player, above average for sure, and even at times pretty good. But he was never even this Von Miller. You know, never mind 2015 Von Miller, but this Von Miller, right? Von Miller is still really good. I think at the end of the year, he's still graded as a top 5 edge rusher. He was dominant in the playoffs. Absolutely dominant versus Tampa Bay. And then really, really good versus the 49ers and pretty good in the Super Bowl. So he just dominated the playoffs. Every big game this guy plays in, he is dominant. So absolutely, Bruce Smith was way before Mario Williams. Bruce Smith was amazing, Hall of Famer, but that was like in the 90s. I'm talking about recently. So you've got Von Miller, who's still really playing at a high level, but he is older. I'm actually going to look up how old he is. I want to say he's like 32. Let me see. 32. Okay. Born in 89. Last season. Don't really pay attention to his numbers too much. But when you take a look at his grades, Aaron Schobel, he was pretty good. That was also before Williams too as well, though. So Von Miller was actually the 3rd highest graded edge player in the NFL according to Pro Football Focus last year. He was only behind Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, which is insane, right? Von Miller had as well the 2nd best run defense grade behind DeMarcus Lawrence and the 8th best pass rush grade. And he also had an elite coverage grade. He had an elite coverage grade of 90.9, which I don't know how much he played in coverage, but that's 69 snaps, which actually is above average for his position. So they think he's still at like an elite level. And you look at his career, he's one of the best edge players of all time. Guys, it's still ridiculous that he ran a 4.42 at his 40-yard dash in 2011. He's 6'3", 250 on the smaller side. That's not a problem for the Bills scheme. He fits in actually pretty darn well in the Bills scheme. I'm going to be interested to see how much they allow him to like stand up and rush and stuff like that. I'm not sure how much they really care. But typically the Bills have been a team, you know, hand in the dirt type guys off the edge. It's not so much. Von Miller a lot of the times has been the outside linebacker where he's standing up and he's rushing, right? I'm not really sure if it matters for him, but that's just something that's a very small thing. So you look at his career, it's ridiculous. I'm looking at his Pro Football Focus grades right now. I'm not going to share the screen just in case they sue me or whatever. But you've got 2021 3rd, 2018 4th, 2017 2nd, 2016 3rd, 2015 1st, 2014 2nd, 2013 2nd, 2012 1st, 2011 3rd. The only year I didn't mention there is 2019, which was 2 years ago because he was hurt for the whole year in 2020 and he bounced back in 2021. He was 22nd, which is still not even bad in 2019. So in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of his 11-year career, he has been top 5. 8 years, he's been top 3 as an edge player, according to Pro Football Focus. That is insane. That is insane. That's how good Von Miller has been. Obviously, he is one of the best edge players of all time, one of the leading sack guys of all time. And he's not what he used to be, I think, in terms of like his motor, like the ability to consistently go play after play after play. He's older, so he's not going to have the stamina and stuff like that he used to have. But he's still very good, well-rounded football player, dominant at times. And yeah, like in the playoffs, he's just one of those guys that has an extra gear. He just finds that extra gear. And this to me is the Bills' move of like, we understand how close we are. We need that veteran that has been there. Like, we need that guy that when we get to the AFC Championship, he knows what to say. Throughout the week, he knows what should be going on in the building, like the vibes, the leadership. Like, this is the move for a player that's still really good. But on top of being really, really good, he's going to have an impact on the mentality and the confidence and the swagger of that team in January and maybe in February, right? And that is a huge thing for a team like the Bills, who have come so close time after time after time, but they need to get over the hump, right? They're searching. I see this a lot in hockey. As a hockey fan, a lot of times teams will go out and they'll acquire that key veteran that has that experience in the playoffs and is really good in the playoffs, and it puts them over the top. That's Von Miller to me for this move. He is that type of difference maker and that clutch performer. So yeah, he is. I can't speak highly enough. I've always been a huge fan of Von Miller, despite him being a Bronco for most of his career and you know, them kind of being a rival of my team. But I've had a lot of respect for him for his ability to do that. So, yeah. Do I have a PFF subscription? Yes, I do. Just, you know, more research for you guys for my channel. So, yeah, I use them as reference points for stats and stuff like that. Nicholas Gill says that Von Miller ranked as my 13th best edge rusher all time going into last season. Interesting. I think I'd have him higher than that, probably in my top 10, but there's been a lot of great edge rushers, so that's understandable. Yeah. But yeah, can't say enough about Von Miller. I absolutely love him, and I think he still can play. Now, the only concern about him going into next year and the future is like he got another bag. Like, is his drive still at the same level? I assume being on the Bills, just the competitive nature and being on a very good team, that's going to help him. Like, I'd be more concerned if he was on a bad team. Because, you know, his legacy's set. He's a Hall of Famer. He's got 2 Super Bowl rings. He's a Super Bowl MVP. There isn't much he hasn't done. So, like, that's the only thing. On top of, is he, like, the go-to pass rusher nowadays? Right? Pro Football Focus thinks so. I think at times for Denver, it hasn't always been consistent, but with the Bills having such a deep rotation of other rushers that can keep Von Miller fresh and young guys that he can also teach, like Rousseau and stuff like that. Like, Von Miller has a camp. Like every offseason, Von Miller has a pass rushing camp where he takes the best pass rushers in the NFL and they have a camp. So that's the type of guy that he is and the leader. So that, like, again, I have my questions, but they're pretty small. They're pretty nitpicky overall. Yes, Chris Godwin got a huge contract. What do you think, Lobello? Okay, where do we want to go next, guys? Do we want to talk about Von Miller's former team, the Broncos, who signed Tom Compton to a 1-year deal? I just want to quickly talk about that. Now, Tom Compton started for the 49ers, who made it to the NFC Championship at the right tackle position, taking over from Mike McGlinchey last year when Mike McGlinchey got hurt. Tom Compton was very solid. He does struggle at times in pass protection, but what I'll say about Tom Compton is he is a very, very good, versatile player in terms of he can play pretty much every single spot on the offensive line. I've seen him start at guard. I've seen him start at center. I've seen him start at tackle. So that is a pretty rare offensive lineman. They're getting him, I believe, on a 1-year deal. He's about 32 or 33. He's a little bit older, but the Broncos are in that win now window. He's familiar with the system, Hackett is going to have some Shanahan-type tendencies within his offense. Compton coming from the 49ers makes sense with that acquisition. And yeah, just a solid veteran player that can play a variety of spots and can start in a pinch. And if he becomes the starting right tackle for the Broncos, I don't think that's necessarily a worry at all. I think he can go in there and play pretty well. He's not going to be great, but he'll be solid, especially for a guy like Russell Wilson, who's used to escaping pressure and running around and stuff. And he's a good run blocker, so that certainly helps. But yeah, Tom Compton to the Broncos. Monty with his AFC East predictions. Okay, what else we want to talk about? Let's go back to the Bills. They're giving O.J. Howard a 1-year, $3.5 million deal worth up to $5 million. Now, I'm pretty sure, I don't know this for a fact, I don't know the exact reaction of Twitter and that on social media of this move, but it's probably one of positive vibes, and I've watched in detail, live, every Bucs game over the past 2 years. Okay, I watch most games throughout the NFL calendar, but I have paid special attention to the Bucs because Tom Brady's been on the team over the last 2 years. O.J. Howard is not what he used to be. O.J. Howard, I would be shocked if he had an impact on the Bills this year. I do not think he's better than Dawson Knox. Not even close. Now, what I will say is, he's a former first-round pick. He has had success in the past. Since Bruce Arians became the coach, he has not had success for Tampa Bay. And he's dealt with injuries. And it's his second year coming off the injury. So there's positive spins that you can take with O.J. Howard. At his best, he's a freak athlete. Fast. Well-rounded tight end. But at his worst, he's irrelevant. Like, last year for Tampa Bay, he did nothing. He was invisible. He barely played. He was easily their third tight end. I don't necessarily know why, but he was. And yeah, maybe as a Bills fan, you could hope that he just plays more and has some sort of impact. But overall, I just haven't seen enough from O.J. Howard recently that makes me believe that he's going to have any sort of impact on the Bills. But as a number 2 or number 3 tight end, you could certainly do worse, as O.J. Howard has produced in the past and does have an athletic profile to potentially have some potential to be a pretty good player. And I still think he's pretty darn young too. I want to say he's still at least 27-ish years old. Do I think the Titans make any moves? I think they're going to now, or I'm going to say they're going to be one of those teams that makes some moves like later in the summer, like June, July, August. They're going to pick up a few veteran players after they get rid of Julio's contract, because they did cut Julio today, which was a big move. Brandon says, what's going on with Trent Brown? You think teams are skeptical about signing him since he sucked when he left the Patriots the first time? He didn't suck. He was actually good. He just got hurt. But I do think teams are skeptical because he has an injury history and he has a history of being unmotivated. And I don't think teams are interested in giving him big money. So he's probably holding out for a better deal somewhere. Now, he is visiting with Seattle and he's still hoping he can sign with New England. Apparently, New England's still in the race there. But we'll see. I like Trent Brown a lot. I like the guy. I think he's a really cool dude and a character and a really talented football player. When his head is on, he's a really talented football player and a unique football player because he is massive and he can really dominate in the run game especially. So, yeah, I think Trent Brown is a good football player. I would sign him. I would just be a little bit aware about a long-term investment, which is probably what teams are scared of. I don't want Julio. I don't want Landry. And I don't even know if I want A-Rob, Monty. I'm going to be honest there. The Chiefs got Justin Reed. Yes, I talked about that yesterday, I think. Super chat from Leo. Appreciate it, Leo. Let's put that on the broadcast. Godwin frees up close to $19 million in cap. I didn't realize it was that significant, but appreciate that, Leo. And then he says that's enough for Lenny, Gronk, and rumor has it Honey Badger. Wow, the Bucks are loading up, he says. Leo, first off, good work for the Bucks. That's a real team right there. Real team. Tom Brady's a better GM than Bill Belichick. I said this already because he recruited Russell Gage to come on the team. All right. What's next? Myles Jack. How about Myles Jack? Former Jags linebacker Myles Jack signing a 2-year, $16 million deal with the Steelers. Myles Jack, big name, high profile, beloved linebacker. It feels like every fan base wanted this guy to sign with their team. I don't think the fan bases have realized that Myles Jack has not quite been the player that people think he has been, or at least it could be put into that overrated category for his production in recent seasons. Pittsburgh has spent a ton of capital on linebacker, off-ball linebacker. They spent a first-round pick on Devin Bush. Had a really good rookie year. Since then has not played very well. They spent another draft pick on Joe Schobert. They spent multiple draft picks and signings just getting depth. And now they cut Joe Schobert as well. Myles Jack, though, signs 2 years, $16 million. Honestly, $8 million a year. That is fairly expensive for an off-ball linebacker in today's climate. But he obviously has shown potential in the past to be an elite player. And the hope is he's only in 1995, so he's a year older than me, so he's 26 years old. So basically, with Myles Jack, they're hoping that you bring him into Brian Flores' linebacker room and you can get elite Myles Jack from Brian Flores coaching him up. My question with Myles Jack is how much has injuries played an impact on him? And how much has Jacksonville played an impact on him? Just the inconsistencies. I think in the past he's been a really good playmaking linebacker. And in the past he's graded well. After 2020, just last year, he graded as the 11th best linebacker. 2017, 14th. But then he's also had really bad seasons. 2019, 78th. 2021, 77th. So, at least according to their grading, he's had some bad seasons. Now, he's 6'1", 244, which is, I would say, smaller than usual for the Steelers. He has pretty good weight, 244. But usually the Steelers have been, usually bigger linebackers. But Myles Jack definitely adds athleticism to the linebacker position that they could utilize. Last year he played 15 games, 108 tackles. The year before, 14 games, 118 tackles. And in terms of coverage, allowed a 108 passer rating last year, which isn't great. But yeah, he's kind of been inconsistent. But when you get a good season from Myles Jack, he's probably worth this contract. When you get bad Myles Jack, he's not worth this contract. So basically what I assume with this deal here is Pittsburgh's looking for somebody to complement Devin Bush to make up for his deficiencies. A lot of that is against the run. Takes bad pursuit angles, poor tackler, small, that sort of stuff. Myles Jack can do that stuff. And the hope is that Brian Flores and Mike Tomlin and this defensive staff can coach Myles Jack in the right direction and put him in a position to succeed and get the best out of him. And I think that's probably what Myles Jack is looking for as a player as well. So I think it's a solid signing. The only thing I really think is negative about it is spending just so much capital and money onto this position that I personally don't think matters a heck of a ton, to the point where you have to spend first-round picks and big contracts to be able to get these guys in your building. That's just my opinion, though. People can look at that differently. So Miles Jack goes to the Steelers. I'm a little bit in the middle with it. I get it. I understand it. It was a need. It's just not like my favorite move in the world. Leo says, Brady is doing a lot of GMing for a person that wants to leave Tampa. No other team would treat Brady the way that he is in Tampa. Kyle Shanahan with a massive ego would not. What is with people like with the Kyle Shanahan massive ego thing? You guys are funny, man. Obviously, though, they've made it pretty obvious that Brady's staying in Tampa Bay. Jamari says Chiefs need to do something because Chargers Broncos are getting loaded other than replacing Tyron with Reed, which was good finding a player to replace him. Yeah, they definitely need to look. It's just tough with the cap situation they got. Those teams are in much better cap situations. That's the problem. So they might have to wait to hit the lower tier free agents and really hit it out of the park in the draft. Atlanta Falcons rolled out the red carpet today during their meeting in Atlanta with the Texans, Deshaun Watson. Ooh, maybe Deshaun Watson's heading towards Atlanta. Ultra, who's probably not here because he's never here. But yeah. Okay. We got next. Let's talk about some fullbacks real quick. I just want to quickly say this. Alec Ingold gets cut by the Raiders and signs with the Dolphins for actually the second biggest fullback contract in the NFL, only behind, guess who, Kyle Juszczyk. So that deal is worth up to $7.5 million with the Dolphins. Mike McDaniel loves his fullbacks, and Ingold is about to become the second highest paid one, according to the report. Now, reason why the Raiders cut him and signed Jakob Johnson is basically the difference in schemes. So the Dolphins now under McDaniel, obviously running similar offense to the 49ers, want a fullback who can be a receiver, a runner, and a blocker, and be like a little bit of a weapon for them, which Ingold is a little bit of an underrated player. He's not Kyle Juszczyk, but he's certainly capable as a runner, as a receiver, and as a blocker in all three phases. The Raiders probably felt like he was going to be too expensive. And then on top of that, they saw a guy in Jakob Johnson coming from New England who is a sledgehammer of a fullback. Now, Johnson's a better pure run blocker, downhill, power guy, just a big animal of a player. He's essentially an extra offensive lineman on the field with a little bit more athleticism. That's Jakob Johnson, essentially. Alec Ingold is like another running back who can block better than the average running back, if that makes sense. So that's the difference in those two moves. That's why the Raiders cut Ingold and signed Johnson. They're looking for more of that just downhill, smash a linebacker in the face, fullback. And the Dolphins are looking for a guy that can be a little bit of a Kyle Juszczyk type. So that's my thoughts on that move. I actually really liked the Jets and the Texans trade. Blake Cashman to the Texans for a 2023 6th-round pick. I think Blake Cashman is actually kind of underrated, I guess. But, like, he's probably a guy that you guys don't really know. But he fits that scheme, I think, fairly well. He's somebody that has a lot of athleticism and speed. And I think he fits the cover 2 system fairly well. And he's been primarily a special teamer throughout his career, or at least recently. But he's had enough snaps to show flashes. Like, he's 6'1", 237, but he's pretty fast. So, like, as a guy that maybe, late round pick could flash some ability on a team that, let's be honest, doesn't have a heck of a ton of talent, Cashman's worth taking a chance on because I think he fits the system really well. And when I saw the trade, I was just like, that actually makes a lot of sense. That was for a 2023 6th-round pick. So for next year's 6th-round pick, the Texans acquired Blake Cashman. The Browns, Rashard Higgins, has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Carolina Panthers. This is a nice move for Carolina just to add depth to the wide receiver position. I think Rashard Higgins is a solid football player. Every time I watched the Browns and watched their games, Baker had a lot of trust in him. He was a very reliable target, especially over the middle of the field. Had a few big splash games, and over the last 2-3 years, he's felt like one of the more reliable receiving weapons for the Cleveland Browns, which does say a lot because they've had Odell there, they've had Landry there, but Higgins reliably stepped up. He's not a special athlete, he doesn't have burner speed, but he's got good size and good hands, and like I said, he's just that guy that finds the space and makes the catches. He's nothing special, but as a number 4 receiver, he could be a nice complement to what you already have on your offense, and I think that's what Carolina has in Rashard Higgins there. 1-year deal for him. Trina says that Tom Brady is going to get injured. Is it Trina? No. Is it Trina? Yeah. Sorry, I can't read. No comments like that, please. Thank you. What else we got here? Cardinals signed former Vikings first rounder Jeff Gladney. Very minor move, but Cardinals need some impact players and some potential at corner. Jeff Gladney, former first round pick, had some pretty terrible off the field stuff, and just he's messed up his career so far. So the Cardinals are giving him a chance. That's basically it. What else we got here? Chargers linebacker Uchenna Nwosu has agreed to a 2-year, $20 million deal, including $10.5 million guaranteed with the Seattle Seahawks. I like this move quite a bit. Nwosu was one of the more under-the-radar edge players on the market coming from the Chargers, going to the Seahawks. I think he fits Seattle's defense much better than he does Staley's defense. He's a little bit small and not great against the run for Staley's defense, but he fits ideally into Seattle's scheme where he can utilize his smaller frame, his quickness, his speed, and he actually has a fair amount of versatility. Now, when I said linebacker, he's more so of a outside linebacker and like a edge rusher, I should say. So, Uchenna Nwosu, I just want to check his stats because I'm pretty sure he had a pretty awesome end to his season, which got him a good contract from Seattle here. But I just want to double check. So, let's see. So, are they going to show me? Gladney was announced innocent, says Monty. Well, I'm just saying, he's kind of messed his career up, regardless of innocence or not. But, yeah, he's had a rough start. So the Chargers. All right, so Nwosu graded 68.5 on PFF, which is solid. Let's check. I actually think, could I check the per games? I want to see this. Yeah, I've always liked him. He's still young. He's 25. 6'2", 251. Snaps by position. 759 on the D-line. 16 in the box. So, yeah, pretty much all on the D-line last year on the edge position. So don't be fooled by the linebacker label. He's a pass rusher. What else? Looking for his stats. So his stats. So, as I said, week 1 through 6, below average for the Chargers. 1 through 6, he had a decent amount of pressures, but he really took off in week 10 versus the Vikings. So, versus the Vikings, 4 pressures, 2 hits, 2 hurries. Then in Pittsburgh, two pressures, 1 sack, 1 hurry, 1 tackle. 2 pressures versus Denver, hit, hurry, 2 tackles. Then you got 7 pressures versus Cincinnati, 2 sacks, 1 hit, 4 hurries. Then another nice game versus the Chiefs, 4 pressures in that game, 3 hurries in that game, 4 pressures versus Vegas in the final game of the year, 3 hurries, 5 tackles. So really when you look at his last season, he took off a little bit towards the end of the year and got most of his sacks at the end of the year. So he ended up with 5 sacks on the year, had 4 of them at the end of the season. So not a bad signing by Seattle. I don't think he's ever going to be a top pass rusher on a football team, but he adds youth to the position for Seattle, which they don't really have a lot of youth at edge. Did they cut Carlos Dunlap? I think they did. But yeah, he improves the youth, only being 25. He improves the athleticism. And he's somebody that maybe you're starting to see him hit his potential at the end of last year. So that's Uchenna Nwosu to Seattle, who's a team that's been looking for pass rushers for a long time. I think he'll be a solid number 2 complementary pass rusher for them. Have I talked about Williams? Which one? The Bears agreed to terms with Packers offensive lineman Lucas Patrick, who actually started quite a bit for the Packers last year. I think when I saw this, my immediate reaction was, okay, maybe he can start for them this year, given the state of the offensive line. For the Bears, I think it's a possibility for him to start for them. He played last year quite a bit. There was a lot of injuries for the Packers last season. So I could see him having a role. He's nothing fantastic or anything like that, but he's at least a piece where he has starting experience. Again, another one of those players that has been a depth piece that was forced into position to play, has played okay when he was forced to play, and you're taking a chance on him to be a true starter for you, or at least compete for a job for you. So that's what I see with Lucas Patrick. The Browns added Jakeem Grant, the Pro Bowl returner. 3-year deal worth up to $13.8 million. Personally, I think this is pretty expensive for a returner, but Grant does add a ton of speed and playmaking ability as a returner, and also a player that can be utilized as, jet sweeps, running, stuff like that, and also maybe occasionally a screen or a deep ball. So yeah, I thought that was a little expensive, personally, for a returner primarily, but he is a pretty darn good one, and I guess the Browns had some extra money to improve their special teams there. Bilal Nichols signed with the Raiders. I thought this was a solid deal for the Raiders. They get a nice interior defensive lineman, upgrade that position. He'll be instantly maybe the best player at that position for them in year 1. 2-year deal from the Bears, worth $11 million, 9 guaranteed. He had a career year in 2021, and he cashed in this offseason. Somebody that's played for Chicago, fairly similar in terms of their schemes with the Raiders up front. And pretty good run defender, mostly, I would say, is known for more so his run defense than his pass rush ability. But I also listed him as a bargain free agent, ranked 51st on the interior defensive line for PFF last year, 37th in pressure at the position, 8 sacks in the last 2 years. So he does have some sack totals. 58% of snaps last year, 64 this year, and he's only 25 years old. So career year, 8 sacks in the last 2 years, and he plays probably about 60% of snaps for the Raiders moving forward, maybe even a little bit more, and has produced as a run defender and a pass rusher. So like that move quite a bit for the Raiders, not a lot of money, but again, the Raiders making some nice moves here. The Patriots signed corner Terrence Mitchell. Terrence Mitchell is just mostly a veteran corner that's played in zone schemes, man schemes, has experience in a lot of schemes, played with the cover 2 scheme of the Texans. Patriots could be looking to play more zone in the future. Terrence Mitchell could be a part of that as a depth player It certainly, without a doubt, is an upgrade over Jawan Williams at the very least, and he can compete for potentially a starting job if the Patriots don't add more to this position. But I would expect him to come in as the fourth corner for New England this season, unless they find some diamonds in the rough, undrafted or late in the draft. That would be my thought there. But yeah, good, like, number 4 corner, solid, can started for the Texans. More so a zone guy, perimeter corner, nothing special, but maybe he can be coached up in New England and play fairly well. The Bears, Artie Burns went to Seattle on a 1-year, $2 million contract. At this point, Artie Burns is like a 4th or 5th corner. He's never truly been able to crack through as a starting corner for the Steelers or the Bears, and mostly special teams value and things of that nature. So those are, I think, all of the news. Let's see. Oh, Tyler Conklin. Last one I got on my notes here. Tyler Conklin signed with the Jets. I like Tyler Conklin quite a bit. He was one of my more underrated offensive signings this offseason. I know I say underrated a lot. I get it. But I do like a lot of these guys that are kind of lower tier but not getting a lot of money, but I think have been productive. You might know Tyler Conklin from fantasy, but last year, 26 years old, turning 27. Signs with the Jets, so he's going to complement CJ Uzomah at the tight end position. Has experience in this offense playing for the Minnesota Vikings, so there's some familiarity there, Minnesota to the Jets. Right, 61 receptions, 593 yards, and 3 touchdowns, starting 15 games last year. He had 9 games with 4+ catches last year. So a consistent, like, number 3 target for the Vikings in their offense a year ago. He had 796 snaps in line, which is like beside the tackle, and he can be moved around though. You know, when you just look at his highlights, he does have enough vertical speed to play on the outside and run some routes. He does have enough quickness to play in the slot. He does remind me of a lesser version of Tyler Higbee. He even looks like him, and he ranked 25th by PFF a year ago. So yeah, Tyler Conklin, I'm a fan of him. I think he's got a solid receiving skill set and a solid, well-rounded skill set as well. Not an upper echelon blocker, but he's not bad. Oh, also, yeah, the Dolphins signed Mostert. So Raheem Mostert, he'll complement Chase Edmonds. He'll definitely be on the team next year. And like I said, I had him going to the Dolphins. I predicted that one, and it was because of Mike McDaniel and the familiarity and the speed. Mike McDaniel wants speed at the running back position. He wants the ability for a running back to read it, hit it, and he's gone. And that's what Raheem Mostert does. Now, the problem with Raheem Mostert has been his injuries. When he plays, he's a good football player. He's a starting running back in the NFL, and at times he can be special because of his elite speed. This guy has Olympic track speed. I'm not sure if that's going to decline instantly due to the injuries. It could, but it's worth taking a chance on, because if you hit with Raheem Mostert for a year and he stays healthy, he'll be really good. But I just don't know how long he's going to stay healthy. Plus, he knows the system. All that stuff works. And obviously, Mike McDaniel believes in the person and the player. So I like that signing quite a bit for the Dolphins. He's a nice compliment to what they brought in with Chase Edmonds and whoever else they bring in from the draft or free agency. So I like Raheem Mostert in that move. It's only a 1-year deal. Makes a lot of sense all the way around for Mostert to be maximized and for the Dolphins to get a running back that fits their offense. Darius Williams, I discussed that right at the beginning of the video, saying, so I said I like the contract. I thought they got a little bit of value there, and I think it's a good signing. So who should get Austin Hooper? Who should get Austin Hooper? Maybe the Packers? I don't know if they have money, though, but maybe the Packers. I think that would be a great spot. I heard that the Bills are going to be bringing back Jordan Phillips. Is that official? I'm not 100% sure if that's official. I heard that that's a possibility. I do not see that that's official. So I'll probably cover that in the next time. But we'll see. All right, guys, I think I'm going to end it there. Talked quite a bit. I've been on for about an hour and a half. So I appreciate everybody joining me here live. It's been fun. Another day of NFL free agency. Hopefully I covered every single one of the signings that you were here to listen to. And hopefully I covered it with enough detail. I tried to give enough detail and as much as I know about all the players. So if you guys have any questions, though, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. Also, guys, don't forget to follow the new TikTok. Link is in the description. Also, follow me on Twitter for my latest tweets and thoughts in the NFL. That is also in the description. Check out the description. You never know what's in there. The TikTok, the Instagram, the Twitter, all those things where you can get exclusive content on those platforms. So please check that out. Don't forget to Gronk spike that like button if you enjoyed this video and this live stream. And I will see you guys tomorrow, probably with multiple videos. Again, I put out a short earlier today about Baker Mayfield. Maybe I'll go live during the day tomorrow. I'll definitely be live at night at some point. And I did see the Danielle Hunter stuff. Nichols, thank you for bringing that up. I definitely think that's going to be interesting to see where he goes, especially considering all these edge signings today. So it's going to be tough to find maybe a partner for that one. But Dallas, are you going to make a move there? I don't know. But yeah, there's probably some teams that are interested. We'll see. I talked about Justin Reed yesterday. I like the player a lot. Go check out yesterday's stream. Brandon says, how do you not have more subs? The breakdowns analysis are more educated and objective than most of NFL content creators. Appreciate that. I strive to do that, so I appreciate that. And I don't know, man. I'm going to keep grinding away, and hopefully we can continue to rack up the subscribers and the views. And as long as you guys continue to be here, especially for these live streams, and continue to Gronk spike the like button and support and subscribe and follow me on the platforms, I'll continue to be here. I'll continue to make content because the more you guys support, the easier it is for me, because the more you support, the more that I can keep digging in. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you on the next one. Peace out.